Have you ever wondered why Muslims suddenly abandoned philosophy? The great Aristotelian style of philosophy, built on strict Greek logic and abstract metaphysics, began to fade right after Al-Ghazali's time. And so the Western world declared that philosophy in Islam had died, that independent, rational inquiry had lost its courage. It's a striking claim made not only by Orientalists, but even echoed by modern Muslim thinkers like Shabir Akhtar and Fazlur Rahman. But if this is true, the real question is why? How did Muslims, who had once been pioneers of philosophy and produced some of its greatest minds, come to set that style of thinking aside? Western scholars and many modern Muslim thinkers give the same answer. Philosophy stepped aside to make room for religious authority. But Muslims were among the most learned people on earth. Jurists, mathematicians, astronomers, physicians, artisans, architects, administrators. Why would a civilization that could keep writing treatises simply decide to put philosophy to the side? To answer this, we first need to ask, what is philosophy? At its heart, philosophy wrestles with three basic questions. What is real? How do we know? And what is good? From the ancient Greeks to the medieval thinkers, these questions were the driving force. Philosophers used reason to search for truth. They argued about the causes behind things, and they tried to shape a way of life that lived up to the truths they believed they had found. The Islamic world were full of philosophical geniuses before and slightly after Al-Ghazali. There was Ibn Sina constructing a sweeping metaphysical system, Al-Farabi mapping logic, politics and happiness, Ibn Bajjah and Ibn Tufayl exploring solitary intellect and allegory, and Ibn Rushd, who defended Aristotle with surgical precision. However, Al-Ghazali's work, The Incoherence of the Philosophers, made a profound impact. After that, philosophy, in the strict Avicennan Aristotelian sense, declined across much of the Sunni world, while Kalam, Islamic dialectical theology, absorbed many of philosophy's logical tools to shape Islamic thought. From a Western vantage point, that looks like death. So far, thinkers like Akhtar and Rahman aren't hallucinating a trend, they're naming what really happened. Al-Ghazali's Incoherence of the Philosophers was brilliant, but it wasn't unchallenged. Ibn Rushd fired back with his own book, The Incoherence of the Incoherence, a passionate defense of philosophy. Yet, despite his effort, that defense was largely abandoned in the Muslim world, even as it went on to shape debates in Europe. But the question is why? This is where the puzzle deepens, because one crucial aspect is often overlooked. Around the same time that philosophy declined, the great Sufi orders were beginning to rise. Yet this fact is often overlooked by Western thinkers, Orientalists, historians, and even many modern Muslim intellectuals, usually because they don't take Sufism seriously or because they have no real access to it. Their perspective is most often from a distance, analyzing it rather than entering it. A few scholars have tried to approach it with respect, but to truly grasp Sufism on its own terms takes years of discipline and practice. Even Al-Ghazali once stood at that distance, trying to understand Sufism through books, until he realized he had no choice but to enter the path and engage with this science directly. Al-Ghazali was a giant, mastering law, theology, philosophy, and mysticism at a level few in history could match. His influence even reached the West. Descartes' Meditations, often seen as the birth of modern philosophy, mirrors Ghazali's deliverance from error, with its radical doubt and search for certainty. Aquinas wrestled with ideas shaped by Muslim thinkers responding to Ghazali, and Hume's skepticism about causality echoes Ghazali's famous critique centuries earlier. Far from killing philosophy, Ghazali helped set the stage for the very debates that shaped modern thought. Here lies the crucial difference between the Muslim world and Europe. Where Descartes reached the limits of doubt and found no path beyond the mind, Al-Ghazali went further. His search for certainty did not stop at abstract reasoning. He pushed beyond the intellect until he was completely transformed. After years on the Sufi path of withdrawal, travel, and purification, Al-Ghazali finally reached what he had been yearning for all along. In his autobiography, Deliverance from Error, he admits that this realization cannot be fully expressed in words. So here is the shocking claim. Philosophy didn't end because Muslims lost their minds. It ended because its central questions were seen as completed on a higher level. What is real? There is nothing real but Allah Himself, the One. How do we know? Not through reason, but through rifa, true certainty. What is good? Not an abstract list of virtues, but a soul transformed, manifesting the attributes of God, al-insan al-kamil, the complete human being. In this view, Ghazali didn't shoot down philosophy, he handed it its crown. In other words, the civilizational center of gravity moved from speculation to realization. Rather than getting lost in endless abstract debates about reality, the Islamic world opened up living paths, tariqas, that claimed to take you directly to it. And unlike philosophy, which often belonged to scholars and elites, these paths were open to all, the farmer, the craftsman, the ruler, and the scholar alike. This made the deepest questions of life accessible to everyone, not just an intellectual few. The impact on society was profound. Even before the great Sufi orders were formally established, Sufi teachings spread an ethos of compassion and balance that helped narrow the gap between rich and poor, giving communities a shared framework for meaning, discipline, and inner growth. The Greeks had sought to live in accordance with truth. Plato imagined a city ruled by philosopher kings. Aristotle wrote of cultivating virtue, and the Stoics trained themselves to align life with reason and nature. But in practice, these ideals remained mostly confined to small circles of thinkers, far from everyday life. In the Muslim world, that same goal was realized on a civilizational scale. Truth was not just argued in books or classrooms, it was lived in daily life. Ordinary people benefited from free hospitals, schools, and lodging for travelers, institutions built from people's wealth and set to run in perpetuity, serving both rich and poor. These were not luxuries for the elite, they were woven into the daily fabric of society. In contrast, much of Europe at the same time left the poor to fend for themselves, with little in the way of organized welfare until centuries later. And when Europe finally did enrich itself, it was not through compassion or balance, but largely through colonization, extracting wealth and labor from other societies, often with devastating violence. Its prosperity came unsustainably at the expense of those it conquered. By comparison, the Muslim world's vision was not built on conquest or exploitation, but on a spiritual ethos that translated truth into lived reality. At times, these practices risked drifting into superstition or excess, but at their best they gave ordinary people a direct share in the pursuit of truth. What the Greeks imagined in theory, Muslims made real in practice. So what does all this really mean? When Western thinkers say Al-Ghazali killed philosophy, they only see half the picture. The truth is that Muslims did not abandon the great questions of philosophy, they carried them further. Instead of stopping at speculation and argument, they found a way to live the answers. And in doing so, they transformed philosophy from something confined to books and classrooms into something that shaped hearts, communities, and entire civilizations. This was not a retreat from reason, but its elevation, from theory to lived reality, from words on a page to truths that ordered society itself. If you found this perspective eye-opening, make sure to like, follow, and repost. And let's keep uncovering the stories that history forgot.